GM, this is Morning Markets. It is Friday, the 3rd of October. So Bitcoin, what are we seeing? Well, on the weekly chart, 12 and 21 EMA bands, they are holding. They've produced this bounce so far, and all eyes now go towards the weekly close after today's session. And what you want to see on Bitcoin is, can we make a close above this 120K level, which we previously haven't been able to close above. If we can close the weekly, which is in 2 days and 13 hours time, above this level, that surely sets up a continuation move to all-time highs. So that is a high time frame trigger to be looking out for in the coming days as this weekly candle closes. Now, lower time frames. On the daily, this is the big mapped out plan for Bitcoin with the volume profile analysis. So we took the volume profile of the distribution and the volume profile of September. Now, this shaded area between the black lines shows where 70% of the volume was traded. So it's very insightful to show where the majority of the buying and selling was done. As you can see, when you break down, it leads to moves lower. When you break above the value area, it leads to moves higher. And currently, we've closed above the POC and closed above the resistance level that I mentioned we need to flip. And that is, of course, the value area high of this volume profile over here. So very strong daily close on Bitcoin. As I said, you got the high close on Wednesday. That leads to continuation as it's a show of strength. So no surprise to see the close above the value area high yesterday. And from here, what you're then looking at is your lower time frames. Go to this Coinbase chart. What are the targets to look out for? Well, you have this previous all-time high over here, and you have the all-time high over here. If Bitcoin can get above yesterday's high, that should set up a momentum move to either one or both of these levels over here. What we are seeing is volume on the 4-hour on the Coinbase chart. So again, this is showing heavily what the ETFs are doing during the New York session. So you have to wait for that New York session to get the best reading today. But volume has been rising, all while price has also been rising and respecting all of its market structure levels. So this is harmony. This leads to continuation higher, or at least an attempt at continuation higher, potentially on the 1-hour. You can see the volumes falling a little bit on this time frame. So sure, you could see sweep of this level, and if we fall back inside, that's probably going to lead to a move lower to find support. But if we can break a hold above here, that sets up a move for me to at least 123K, if not the all-time high today. So let's see if we can get one of those moves. It'll be interesting. There's a lot of momentum in this move. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people chasing this move, but the reason why getting above this level is so important, it's 121K, is because Bitcoin really has not traded above 121K for very long. If we mark this level out, we spent a few hours above 121K in Bitcoin's existence, really. Let's take the volume off so it's easier to see. Therefore, this is clearly an area of imbalance from the market. It's not where it wants to be. So you get these sharp moves up through this level, and it's pretty easy to trade through it. And that is exactly why I say, if we can actually start getting above yesterday's high on low time frames with some closes, hold that level, then it sets up what can be a quick move today to 123.2K or even all-time high. So that's what I'd be watching. Now, if we don't continue the momentum, we have got some lower levels. We've, of course, got the H150 EMA, which provided support previously in the trend if we are going to lose the 12 and 21 bands. And if the H1 trend is going to be invalidated, then you simply just move up to your H4 trend, where, again, we found support at those 12 and 21 EMA bands. Could we find support there again if we need further downside? But that's what I'd be playing. If we do close above strongly then I'm looking to trade any momentum moves to some of these levels, looking to get long on those lower time frames to play what can be a pretty sharp move up, and that can even, as I said, hit the all-time high. So that's what I'm looking for today. That's going to be met with, no doubt, the ETF's bidding price if we are going to see something like that. And alternatively, if we consolidate here and can't make new highs, then probably going to lead to a bit of bleeding as we head into the weekend on Bitcoin. Probably allows your altcoins to run then if we do get this scenario instead. And then again, you just look to your higher time frame bands to find where support could be. And deeper pullbacks, of course, you want to see these gaps hold. It's your impulse candle gap. However, with the momentum we've got right now, that is too far away a level to really even look at because there's so many support zones in between that Bitcoin would even need to break. And if we go back to the higher time frame, this gives you a clearer view of what I'm talking about there. So while we are above the value area high, as I said, we really can just see momentum here. Take over, take over. Now, of course, this is the daily chart. So if we zoom into something like the 1 hour on this chart, actually, you can see we've got above this level. So if we can hold it, this is when you can see that blow off top style move in this rally to take it to wherever it's going to go. So that's the level to stay above. It's 119.9K, or you can just call it 120K. And on any pullbacks, if we do lose that value area high today, then you're looking at a pullback on Bitcoin instead. So you're probably going to be looking at the POC. So lose 120K, then you're probably going to be looking at a move down to there on a pullback, and we have to recoup for later in the week. That would be the area to bid. It's the retest of this high here. And of course, failing that, if you start to lose this POC level, then you're probably actually going to get a different path where you get a bit more of a bleed, bit more consolidation and chop on Bitcoin, where we have to reaccumulate for longer and find a lower support zone, which then opens up again that move to 114.8 to 116.5. But to be clear, this has strong momentum. I don't think the orange path is most likely. Of course, we'll play it as it comes and as new data arrives. I do think if we are going to see a dip, it's probably only going to be to this POC at 118K. And even then, that only comes after you lose this value area high level over here, where Bitcoin is seeing a very strong bid. Momentum's really taking this chart away. The H1 trend is your respected trend. These bands are producing new highs each time. So as long as we're above 119.9K, your bias should be for a momentum move higher today. And again, that's where I'll look to trade on the long side, capturing any of this move. It's only if we start losing this level that you can say, okay, we're probably in for a little bit more of a flush, maybe to that POC, where you can then take an alternative long setup as price comes back to the high that it broke on Wednesday. So that would be your deeper pullback scenario. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of Bitcoin. Watch yesterday's high to see if we can break above that today, especially in that New York session. So that's the full Bitcoin update. Quick look at Bitcoin dominance. Is it rising? So I set these two levels out. If you haven't watched the monthly outlook for October, make sure you do. I dropped it yesterday. That's a super high time frame view, analyzing how long we have left in the cycle, what the rest of the cycle could look like, how to position yourself for high time frame longs, high time frame investing. Super important stuff if you are a long-term trader. Of course, myself, I trade both short-term and long-term. I think everyone should trade long-term because the game is to hold assets, not cash, because cash goes to zero over time. We all know that, and the wealthy hold assets. So make sure you take a look at that video. Went into this a lot further and all the macro trends that can drive Bitcoin in Q4. Bitcoin dominance is one of them. So if you see this actually break 59 as Bitcoin rises, then you're more likely to actually see a strong move on Bitcoin. And if it falls below 57%, you're more likely to see a weak move on Bitcoin. So what I mean by that is when we go back to the previous chart, if we do get a move higher today to test that all-time high, the real question is, does it break? And do we just consolidate around it? That would be bullish. This is what you want to see. And I think that's going to be coupled with Bitcoin dominance rising, if so, because that's going to show inflows and strength into Bitcoin. And also, you have Bitcoin against gold, which is rising. So if we check out Bitcoin gold, this chart over here, it's down here. So another thing I mentioned in the monthly outlook video, if this chart breaks above 32.1k before it breaks below 29k, then you're actually seeing some strength in Bitcoin against gold, which again allows Bitcoin to go on its proper rallies. It's always when this chart is rising that Bitcoin has its good moves. This was the 2024 pump going into Trump's presidency. And then, of course, when this tops out, January 20th, it's the exact top on Bitcoin. And when this bottoms out, it's the exact bottom on Bitcoin. It's a very important chart. You need to see Bitcoin outperforming gold, as that shows it's getting some favorable flows, which allows Bitcoin to, again, have strength and be more likely to follow a breakout that holds like this green path. And that can look like this as well. So where we take the all-time high and overall just have a low volatility consolidation around it, that would be bullish with Bitcoin dominance rising. Alternatively, if Bitcoin dominance starts falling as Bitcoin attempts a breakout and rises to all-time high, if it starts weakening against gold, then that's when you're probably going to see it wick the all-time high and just start consolidating below. Now, this would actually be bearish, alternatively. Sorry for that alarm, guys. Because this scenario, you're seeing Bitcoin hit the all-time high and then actually lose it. So if you take a level, a resistance level, and then you start consolidating below it, that tends to be a bearish setup and probably confirms distribution. Once you hit a resistance level, you ideally want to consolidate above it. And if not above it, at least at it. You never want to see price take a high and then it start consolidating below, because that is distributive price action. So there's going to be some signs to see whether Bitcoin is forming more of a distribution here, or if it is actually going to mark up and follow accumulation and break out. So that's what I'm watching for signal wise. And overall, again, you just don't want to see those wild swings of volatility start to appear as we head towards all-time high. This would also be indicative of distribution. Instead, you want to see Bitcoin slowly start building a base. And I talked heavily on this in the monthly outlook video. We just get a slow accumulation grind higher. And if you look at something like the 4-hour bands, what happens here is when you get your EMA bands out, looking at the 50, 100 and 200 EMAs, they have now flipped in bullish order. So 50 above the 100, above the 200. If you can just start to build a positive base where we start building those higher highs, higher lows before a breakout, and you then see the 50 start to fan up, you start to see the 100 start to fan up, and you start to see the 200 start to fan up. This is what we see before every breakout on Bitcoin. Let's take a look. So 50 above the 100, above the 200. These bands started to fan out. They got respected on the retest, led to markups higher. And what did you have? You had bullish structure, low volatility price action forming here. That's why the move was successful. Now again, this markup over here, you had 50 above the 100, above the 200, all fanning out nicely. You had highs, going into higher lows, going into higher highs, higher lows, all building a solid base to break out from. Therefore, that's what you want to see when it comes to BTC. Can we start to build a solid base with these bands starting to catch up and fan out? Because that's going to build accumulation before the all-time high, which allows for a breakout that can actually mark up. Alternatively, you're of course at risk of the liquidity sweep, as I said, which is going to be more distributive if we do just go straight up, because then you just leave behind so much inefficiency where this then becomes volatile and can more likely lead to a move that distributes down rather than a breakout trend. So that's what to watch for on Bitcoin. Again, more on that in the monthly outlook video. Make sure to watch it. But intraday, watching for if we get above yesterday's high and hold it, let's trade some momentum up towards the all-time high and the previous all-time high at 123.2k. So charts look good on Coinbase. Volume is rising. When it comes to Ethereum, so what are we seeing? Well, I took some nice trades on ETH. As you guys know, I took full profits on these trades for a pretty decent return. I think it was plus 5 point something R, so very nice, very happy with that. Compounded it nicely and took profit at the weekend liquidity, which we've found some resistance at. It was a key target for ETH I've been talking about for weeks now. So no surprise to see it finding some resistance there now that it's touched it. And from here, ETH is below its resistance to flip. So ETH is underperforming Bitcoin. Therefore, if we do pull back here, you just want to see ETH hold its support levels and again, build that base that I was talking about. This is so much more bullish because go back to your 4 hour, put on those 100, 200, and 50 EMA bands, which aren't even in bullish order yet on ETH. This is actually going to give them time to form bullish order. It's going to give time for the 50 to get above the bands, to get the 200 at the bottom band and the 100 in the middle and start to fan out and build the higher highs and higher lows in the uptrend. That's what leads to a proper breakaway markup. So if ETH does pull back here, you're just looking for where can it find support. And you, of course, want to ideally see it above the value area low. So within this green box over here. And then once that resistance flips, you're then looking at a fast move potentially to the all-time high. Because, again, price doesn't like to be up here. You get quick imbalance moves there. So if you build a base before you go up there, it's more likely to actually have a breakout like the green path. If you don't build a base and we just go straight up from here, flip that resistance, and it's probably again going to just be volatile and be more distributive. Therefore, that's what I'll be looking at on ETH. You want to see bases start to build, but overall, you've reclaimed the range. You set the trap over here, so you set the fake out, trapping a bunch of bears at the lows. You've reclaimed the range, so it's all in all a good setup for ETH. It's reversed. It's confirmed the reversal and it's now building its way through the range, and you just want to see it now build a healthy base to pump from. And that's why I took profits on some longs, because again, we're at weekend liquidity. It's a perfectly reasonable place to take profits because we have had pretty much up only move, and probably at some point there's going to be pullbacks, not sure when. And on those pullbacks, we can look for some better swing longs again in these higher risk reward areas on ETH. That's your interim support. When it comes to Bitcoin, if we do get deeper pullbacks later on in the week, that's going to be your POC and your interim support too. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of altcoins. Good setup there on ETH, and that's really it when it comes to the market. So gold obviously had a red day, but nothing bearish until the low breaks at 3.8k. So we're seeing gold consolidating, which is bullish for Bitcoin. That's why you're getting Bitcoin having its outperformance. You put them together, what do you see? Let's go to the 4 hours. So get Bitcoin up over here. Go to the 4 hour chart. Bitcoin's marking up in the same time that gold has been going sideways. Again, this is the cause and effect relationship between them. So if you see this continue consolidating, continue rising too, that's fine. Just not in this fashion. Not in this up only fashion, because again, look, that's when Bitcoin goes down. When gold goes up in that ripping price action. Whereas if you get this chart consolidation, now Bitcoin takes over and gets the flows. That's what you want to see continue. Now, of course, on gold, you've got the H450 EMA holding as support. And if you go on the 12-hour, you actually see the 12 and 21 EMAs are providing the trend support. So expect that to continue and produce new highs on longs. When we look at stocks, similar story, producing new highs. And every dip into the band you're seeing hold very nicely, which is showing that investors, they are bullish on stocks, they're bullish on Q4, and they're just buying. And you're just getting that classic slow grind up that stocks tend to do. It's nothing parabolic or impulsive. It's just how the price action of the stock market tends to move as you have people just constantly putting their money in the markets, flowing capital. That's what the wealthy do. And you're just seeing the slow grind higher with the daily 12 and 21 bands producing the new highs. So watch for that to continue respecting. And when it doesn't, that's when it opens up for a potential deeper pullback. But until then, stocks are trending higher, gold's trending higher, Bitcoin's outperforming because gold and stocks have slowed down a bit. Watch if that continues and watch Bitcoin dominance to show if Bitcoin's going to have strength in a potential breakout or not. So that's morning markets. Altcoin analysis will be tomorrow. So all of you in the comments, go drop 1 or 2 altcoins. I will note down the list and analyze them in my video tomorrow. You guys are the real G's because you stayed till the end of the video. So drop 2 altcoins. I'll try to get as many of them done as possible. If I can do more, I will. Just depends how many requests I get. And I'll see you in the next one tomorrow.